I think I've shared with you guys in February of this year, I celebrated 16 years of continuous sobriety, right?
Amazing.
So that takes a consistent set of behaviors. As we always say, you're either building the habits of doing or not doing, and your habits shape your decisions shape your destiny. And so that's been a consistent action on my part to change the narrative I have about myself. But what I really needed was to find a solution to my mental conditioning. And when we talk about mindset, we talk about a conditioned set of beliefs that drive behavior that generate results in our lives. So I had what I learned, and what I came to understand was I had a warped image of myself. My self-image was shaped and formed by other people. And that's why, when I talk about giving the pen to the story of our lives to all of these other people. So I gave the pen to the story of my life to this very broken man, my father, and to the bullies at school, and to the teachers that put me in special ed and said I'd never amount to anything. I let them write on the pages of my life.
Welcome to Limitless Minds, the podcast where curiosity meets greatness. Each week, co-hosts DJ Eitzen and Harry Wilson sit down with some of the most exceptional individuals across sports, business, and beyond. From world-class athletes and peak performance coaches to visionary CEOs, entrepreneurs, and influential authors, they dive deep into the stories and strategies that drive extraordinary success. If you're ready to discover what it takes to be truly limitless and push beyond your own limits, you're in the right place.
On this episode of Limitless Minds, we have Charlie Smith, a keynote speaker and a mental performance consultant with a mission to empower others to take control of their lives. After 30 years of success in commercial development, Charlie now helps organizations, teams, and individuals master the mental skills needed to achieve their goals. His signature platform, My Life, My Pen, inspires Fortune 300 companies, executives, athletes, and even Academy Award winners to intentionally author their own stories and perform at their highest levels. He's a Limitless Minds coach. He's Charlie Smith. Enjoy. All right, we're back with part two with Charlie Smith, Limitless Minds coach, speaker, author, and just a rocket fuel for anybody that gets time with Charlie. In part one, we talked a lot about his journey, his journey with addiction and trauma as a child that kind of has led to his mission today. And we want to really unveil and unravel that mission quite a bit. Charlie, on part one, we talked about self-image and really how this trauma kind of created this narrative for you over time about how important our self-image is, right? Now, resilience is such a key theme in your story. What do you think kept you going during your hardest moments? How did you rebuild that self-image over time?
Yeah, it's a foundational question, and thank you for asking it, because at the end of the day, when we talk about mindset, right? So I found recovery for my drug and alcohol problem. I think I've shared with you guys in February of this year, I celebrated 16 years of continuous sobriety, right?
Amazing.
So that takes a consistent set of behaviors. As we always say, you're either building the habits of doing or not doing, and your habits shape your decisions shape your destiny. And so that's been a consistent action on my part to change the narrative I have about myself. But what I really needed was to find a solution to my mental conditioning. And when we talk about mindset, we talk about a conditioned set of beliefs that drive behavior that generate results in our lives. So I had what I learned, and what I came to understand was I had a warped image of myself. My self-image was shaped and formed by other people. And that's why, when I talk about giving the pen to the story of our lives to all of these other people. So I gave the pen to the story of my life to this very broken man, my father, and to the bullies at school, and to the teachers that put me in special ed and said I'd never amount to anything. I let them write on the pages of my life, and that shaped my conditioned set of beliefs. And so if I was going to change the trajectory of my life, I needed to get to work on not who they thought I was, but who I thought I was. And when you talk about the influence of Trevor Moawad on me, there's a few kind of signature stake in the ground moments, and things that he said that hit me in a way that I'd never been hit before. And he said something powerful about self-image. And he said, no one's going to influence Charlie Smith more than Charlie Smith.
Yeah,
and what you think of you is 10 times more important than what anyone else thinks of you. So what are you writing about yourself, young man? What are you writing about yourself today? And how does that narrative support who you want to be as a father and as a man and as a provider in this world? And nothing shaped me more than saying, hey, I need my own internal ad campaign. It can't be written from my dad's eyes, guys. It has to be written from, in my case, a loving God who I believe in strongly, that shapes and molds the image of me. And then me getting to work on writing how that person that I want to be is going to behave. So it's beliefs and behaviors that generate results. And so it all started with that internal ad campaign, Harry.
Yeah, talk a little bit more about the internal ad campaign for those that maybe haven't heard that terminology before. Like, how would you define how do I develop one? How do I take that and build it?
Yeah, it's great. And I mean, to go back to what Trevor said, the external world is advertising to you already, right? He talked about McDonald's being like the tractor beam in Star Wars, and what we should wear and how we should look and what we should drive. And at the end of the day, it all starts with us creating, and really the first pillar of this pen is know who you are. And the way you know who you are is you start to understand what makes you unique and special. Every single person has a unique fingerprint, a unique heartbeat, right? Our eyes are unique. Our gait is unique. What makes you unique and special? What are the attributes about yourself, the values that you have, the principles that you live by, the things that are important to you? How do you start to put those into a concrete ad campaign like you were a Madison Avenue ad executive writing an ad campaign about yourself that serves the goals that you have for yourself? What would you say? And so you have to get down to all of those things. And Trev talks about it in both books, but a lot more in Getting to Neutral, that value proposition. What are your values? And I always say what you value becomes valuable by how much you invest in it. And if you're not investing in the things that you value, then they're going to become obsolete. And so that internal ad campaign is the most important thing you can do with this pen, which is who you are, what you stand for, what you value, and then what are the behaviors that support it, right?
And yeah, it's funny because I just remember Trevor always talking about no stinking thinking, and some of the negativity that can go through your mind. When you find that happening with yourself, and obviously you've had a past of addiction. What are there certain things that trigger you, that are the hardest times to go through, that remind you of the past? What are those things, and then how do you circumvent and get around falling back into some of the same old bad habits?
That's a great question, DJ. It's about changing our identity, right? So we have an action that can become a behavior, that can become a habit. And then when you've done it long enough, it becomes your identity, right? So I'm a sober, proud, confident, passionate entrepreneur. That's my identity statement. So when I create that and I say it to myself, and I know it like my birthday, and you can hear the words that are in that identity statement: sober, proud, confident, passionate entrepreneur, right? These are the things that I say to myself about who I am. And then the behaviors that go along with them support that identity. So again, beliefs and behaviors, when I go on my golf trip with my college buddies and they're drinking the latest IPAs, I mean, there's stuff out there today that I've never had before. I never had a White Claw. It didn't exist when I got sober, but again, I've become neutral, literally neutral to alcohol. I don't swear it off. I'm not cocky. It doesn't exist to me because it's not my identity. And so when you do these things consistently over and over again, you shape and mold your identity as a sober man, and you do the things that a sober man does. When the triggers come up, whether they're good or bad, I used to drink when I'd close a deal, and I used to drink when I lost a deal. Now I've learned to do all those things by principle instead of preference. And that's what we talk about, is practicing these principles that we live by. And I have them, written on my desk right here, things like honesty, hope, faith, courage, integrity, willingness, humility, love. Can I practice these principles in all my affairs when things are going bad, and things are going bad?
The thing I always loved about Trevor's talk about internal ad campaign, as you mentioned, he would kind of give some examples, right? Like
all beef patties.
Exactly.
And I don't want to know any of that.
It's amazing how he would recall those, and I think that was partly the point, right? But it had me thinking, so I just actually literally pulled up just top most iconic ad campaigns, right? And it's interesting because so many of them are like very neutral in their statement, right? So Nike, it was just which Trevor would always bring up, just do it, 1988, right? It's a rallying cry for athletes and non-athletes alike, inspiring action and perseverance, right? Coca-Cola, share a Coke, just really inspiring, connecting and sharing moments, with people. Eminem, he always used to use Eminem, melt in your mouth, not in your hands, right? I'm going down the list here. I mean, BMW, the ultimate driving machine, 1975. L'Oreal in 1973, because you're worth it.
You're worth it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that empowered women by tying, beauty to self-worth, right? I mean, a lot of it was about like the consumer's like self-image, right?
Yeah.
And kind of a neutral statement in response, which is really interesting, right? So when we think about our own internal campaign, we should really be thinking about it the same way, right? I mean, so if I want my internal ad campaign to be like, hey, you're made for this, right? That's not a positive or negative. It's just that, hey, listen, you've been building, a repertoire of response and adversity that you can handle these things. You're made for it, right? You're built for this. And so, I think as people think about their ad campaigns and how they want to structure those, like there's no reason not to do it right now, right? There's no reason not to put pen to pad or share it with a friend and like kind of think, hey, you know what? Here's something I'm aspiring to be or to do. And let me build my own just do it slogan for it. You know what I mean? Because I think most people don't really do it. They'll listen to this and they're going to just go about their day. So I challenge anybody listening to this to actually put pen to paper on their internal ad campaign. I think it's part and parcel to this kind of my life, my pen, right? Potentially. And so I love that piece, and I love that connection with Trev, and hence probably why we're all here together.
Yeah, that's right. It is.
It's amazing. And talk about divine intervention. I mean, I was on a discovery call as a beta tester to the original Limitless Minds app with Harry years ago. And now I'm a part of the organization and helping you share your message as a result of this. Because the other thing that I wanted to bring up about Trevor, the second kind of pillar that really struck me was he said the past isn't predictive. Yeah. And he would always tell the story of your brother in the 2014 NFC Championship game, throwing 4 picks with 5:28 left in the game.
Don't remind me.
And if you can imagine now, but he came back and won that game because the past wasn't predictive. Yeah. And if you can imagine being Charlie Smith sitting here at the age of 42 years old, struggling with, all of the wreckage, all the interceptions that I had thrown leading up to that point in my life. I'd thrown more than 4 picks, in my life at that point in my life. But he said, doesn't mean you can't throw the game-winning touchdown, bro. Doesn't mean you can't have a different life if you change the things that you do starting when? Today, as you just said. Yeah. And if I could start to change my narrative, the things I said to myself, and then get up on time the next morning, literally my prayers when I first got sober were, God, help me be where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to do. Sounds simple, not easy, but that's what I needed to do to make that shift. And if I did, then my past didn't need to be predictive of my future, because my current behaviors could be. And that stuck with me, as they went on and won that game over Green Bay in overtime as a result of Russ changing the way he thought. Hey, I don't know what you're going to do. I'm going to fight. I know I can complete a pass, all neutral statements, right? He didn't say we got him right where we want him, and my life wasn't right where I wanted it, but I knew it didn't have to continue this way if I changed what I did, right?
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah, it's so interesting when we talk about it. You've mentioned it a couple times now, your faith, and tell us a little bit about your faith and how it's played into where you're at today, and how you practice your faith and maintain it.
It's so I view my faith like and my relationship with God like Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you remember in that book, he made a statement. He said, in order to have a friend, you need to be a friend. So I grew up with a belief in God and a power that was bigger than me and what God could do. But I never was a friend to God. As my addiction and my alcoholism grew, I became less and less connected with him because I was going places and doing things that, let's face it, a man close to a higher power, to a God, wouldn't be doing. And so when I got sober, I leaned back into that connection that I had. You know what I started doing, guys? I started doing 2 things. I started thanking him for what he'd done for me. I'd never done that in 42 years. And then I asked him what he needed of me. And the third thing was to give me the courage to do it, because he needed me to do some important things in changing the way that I was living my life. And I didn't have that power within me, so I had to get it from him. So it's become foundational. Every day I'm a camel. I start my day on my knees, and I end my day on my knees in intention, asking him to direct my thinking. It's very similar to a mental performance framework. The 11th step of recovery is sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. And I don't say that from a religious standpoint. I do say it from a spiritual standpoint, that in the morning I ask him to direct my thinking, and at night I review my day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Every day.
So it's
Every
consistent.
day.
And the other thing I love what you said there, it's less about the repetition or action of it. It's more about the relationship. It's both, right? You have to consistently do it, but you have a relationship with God. It's not something that you're just checking a box or, just going through the motions. So I think that's a really, in relationship in general and mindset go hand in hand. And so I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah, it's been foundational.
Yeah.
It's good.
Charlie, so like during this story arc that you've shared with us over part 1 and currently in part 2 here, we went from a world that was less, built around technology to now it's a part of our everyday, right? And it can work for us, certainly, right? And it does every day, but it can also work against us, right? Particularly when we think about our self-image when it comes to like social media and stuff. Like, how are you seeing that play out, and like what are some of your predictions for the future relative to technology as it relates to kind of our mental fitness? You know what I mean? Are there things that you wish that we could solve for, if you had a magic wand or all the money in the world to be able to pay for it, right? Like, what would be that, what would be your kind of the big problem that you would solve in that with how it relates to technology for us?
Wow, what a great question, and an important one. There's a book out now called what's the name of that book? It's called The Anxious Mind, and it's about the rewiring of our youth's minds and what some of these influences are having on them. And the biggest threat that we have, if used incorrectly, is the threat to our self-esteem and to our self-image, because there's this idea that we've got to either measure up to or keep up with these things that we're seeing externally from other people, whether it's what they have, what they do, how they've got there. And we get this idea in a technology-driven world where we want to fast forward to the end of the story. And the truth of the matter is, one of my grounding principles over the course of the last couple of years, as I've pivoted in my own life, is here is on the way there, make here count. Because we all want to get there, and we all think we should be there, and we all think there is the answer. The worst disease, the second worst disease I caught besides alcoholism and addiction, was destination disease. And destination disease is this idea that when I get there, then I'll be happy. And what that's doing, like in my own life, I condition myself, right, for happiness being somewhere beyond where it is now. And that's why I love that great quote by James Oppenheim. He says, "A fool looks for happiness down the road. A wise man grows it under his feet." And I think that's the risk in the technology used incorrectly, is that we're thinking that we need to get somewhere else or have something else, versus recognizing, just like you've pointed out in this interview, all the things that I've gone through, all the things that I've overcome have had a part in shaping and molding who I am today, when I look through them and at them through the proper lens. And that's, I think, what we need to do with technology. It can work for us or against us, just like everything else can. It depends on our perspective and how we choose to use it and what we choose to use it for. Yeah. That's a choice.
Yeah. Are there guardrails and things that you do in your everyday to either minimize or, limit the amount of technology that you use?
Yeah, I use the guardrails that they have on these devices. Believe it or not, it's like, here's my time limit. I know that if I'm going to do deep work, my phone has to stay outside of my office. It's like, starve your distractions, feed your focus. And the idea is, maybe I don't have the willpower if it's sitting next to me. And sometimes I'll be on a call and I'll forget. Now someone will see me and I'll do this. And that's me throwing my phone onto the couch over there, because I don't want it where I can see it. They spend a lot of money get my eyes on that thing. And so I don't bring it into meals anymore. I don't bring it into my 12-step meetings anymore. Where I want my attention to be is on what I want my attention to be on. So if I leave it in the car when I go to dinner with you guys, then I'm not tempted to bring it out. And sure, I might miss the photo and I might miss sharing something, but I can send that to you after we're done having a meal. So I've created these kind of boundaries, or as you said, guardrails, that allow me to be in control of what gets my attention, not somebody else putting their priorities on me, right?
It's funny. I was telling Courtney last night that I was trying to do something that I needed her help with. and it was just this, right? I was like, hey, I'm leaving my phone over here up in this other room, and I'm sitting on the couch without my phone. So if you're wondering like why I'm just aimlessly just, like sitting here, is because, and that was also kind of my way of having her join me in this effort, right? Without telling her she needs to put her phone down. Like I was like, well, let me do this too. Let me do it. Because then she'll probably mirror this, and which she picked up on. And so like we sat there all evening, no phone. And it was awkward and it was hard. And that's a problem. Right. In other words, we were asking each other something about the weekend. Hey, what do we think about when we're going to do this? And each answer was like in our phone. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like looking at the calendar or trying to look up something or whatever. And we just had to be like, oh.
Did you get anxious at all? Did you get anxious at all?
I'm saying, I was really anxious. I was really anxious.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's like an appendage. It's like, hey, I don't even know do it with my hands.
Right.
And it's a problem, right? I mean, like, and I think that, the greater majority of people have this same issue that they won't admit. You know what I mean?
No.
And it's affecting relationships like slow, it's like
an erosion, right? Yeah, it's like
over
erosion.
time, right? I mean, it's not going to do anything tomorrow, like overnight, but like over time, you don't have those interactions. I mean, we put the girls down in between 8:39 or so, and then we have our hour or two together. But a lot of times it's spent just doing this, like scrolling, just scrolling, right? And then it's like, hey, you trying to go upstairs? Yeah, let's go upstairs. And then you brush your teeth, you lay down, plug your phone in, and you're like setting your alarm. You're looking at some last little bit of social media, and then you roll over and go to sleep. And like that is 2.5, 3 hours of like quality, like QT, that out the window. And then you aggregate that over a week, over a month, over 2 years, right? And how many hours is that spent not engaging, right? And so, what you're talking about, I'm working on implementing. I'm not even close to being there. But it's hard to do it alone, And so, yeah.
Yeah. I've started a digital sunset, which is, I tuck my phone in before I tuck me in. It's like, I got to get myself some space between that last, whatever it is, and going to bed. I was in New Orleans. I work with a professional rugby team down in New Orleans. I was there this past week interviewing with the new coach, and I was staying at the JW Marriott in downtown New Orleans. And I walked out of the little breakfast cafe where you can go and have a buffet. Mm-hmm. And literally every single person in that breakfast cafe, older couple, families, kid, everybody to a person was on their phone. Not one person, as I walked out, was talking to the person that they were there with. And it just struck me, when you observe these things, to say, wow, it's nice to use them and they've served a purpose, but it's not great to be replacing human connection with virtual connection. I think there's a quote from the Anxious Mind book talks about we're overprotecting our kids in the real world and underprotecting them in the virtual world, right?
Yeah.
I'm anxious and excited to read that book. We'll put it in the show notes too. I had not heard about that book yet, but it's something that keeps me up at night. And Harry, you bring up a great point. It's like, how do we model it? First off, and and I think too, with our kids, it's like, I don't even know what the appropriate amount of time is. That's what I struggle with a lot of times. It's like, I mean, how much is too much? How much is, enough? So I, as a parent, we're constantly we just had a conversation about this yesterday. My wife and I is like, because we look at the utility, and see how many hours each kid has been on, but I don't, is that good? Is that bad? Is that, is it trending up? We can see that, or is it trending down? But it's definitely uncharted waters that got to get in front of, for sure.
Well, and it goes right with our teaching, right? Things that we have to model what matters, right? So at the end of the day, things from everybody that we're around, even a leader at a company, things are caught, not taught, right? So leadership is an all of the time thing. So you want to model what matters because we're the example, and so if I always joke about the father who says, honesty is an important trait, and then somebody calls and says, oh, tell him I'm not here. It's like, bro, what are we doing here? It's like, right. Like we have to be very cautious, in the way that we model things for the people we lead, and everybody is a leader, right? If anyone's depending on you for anything in your life, you're a leader. I always say, just because you have a C on your jersey or a title doesn't make you a leader. And just because you don't doesn't mean you're not. So, what are the things that we value, and what's the influence and impact we want to have, and how are we modeling that for the people we lead?
Yeah.
So, Charlie, what's your big, hairy, audacious goal that you have that's, from, to impact people, or what does that look like moving forward for you?
I think the one thing that I've got is that big goal is to get, these words on paper and to share my life, my pen in a book with people so they can learn these lessons and own their pen. I mean, I put words on paper. It needs to be edited and put out there. And I'm looking forward, anxious to do it a little, but I think that's really the big thing for me is to get that book onto paper and into the hands of other people, and to get the pen into the hands of every single person. When I finish a call with any of our clients at Limitless Minds, I always offer them and have sent out lots of pens all over the country to our clients and their associates, because I want to empower everybody that we deal with to recognize that they're the authors of this story, and we're not going to blame, complain, or put that story on anybody else. And it's empowering. So I think the book is probably, the next thing that's got to come out of Charlie Smith.
It's great.
I love it, man. Can't wait when it does. It'll be great.
No doubt.
Plus I need a pen.
I know. You give me your address. It depends on its way. Trust me, my man.
A couple of them bad boys. I want to get some of my daughters.
Yes, I was going to say I'll send one for each of the family for sure.
Yeah. Well, we know that when you put something out there, it happens, Charlie. You have a history of doing that. So the book is just a matter of time, and so we'll look forward to it. Let us know how we can help in any way. You know what I mean?
No question.
We'd love to. And DJ, anything else for Charlie before we wrap?
No, I mean, listen, I think for me, hearing an inspiring story like yours, where, you go through adversity, you really go against all the odds and then make something, tremendous not only out of yourself, but the impact that you've had on other people is just, I'm so glad that we get to share that with the listeners, and got an opportunity today to talk to you. So thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, you guys mean the world to me. And I'll finish with a quick story from a sophomore high school quarterback I work with. And I recently asked him the lesson he learned this season about adversity from our work together from a mental performance standpoint. This is a 16-year-old kid out of Ontario Christian High School down in California. And he said to me, last year I handled adversity, Charlie. This year I took advantage of it. And I sat there and I listened. I said, isn't that the message, right? Make adversity our advantage. And so that's, what I want everyone to do is to, like the buffalo that sits behind me, to charge into the storms of your life, and to own the pen to the store of your life, and write me a great story, man, because it's going to be great.
Yeah. That's good stuff, brother. Well, that's a great place to leave. Before we jump, where can people find you of course, on social media, as we
right. Of course, through technology.
Or a website or anything like that. Where can they find you?
So I primarily am on LinkedIn and Instagram. Those are the two places that I put most of my content out on. I'll offer any listener Limitless Mind podcast to email me at charlie@charliesmithspeaks.com. If you send me your address, I will send you your pen, because I don't give them away. You got to ask for it, because once you take this back, it's your life. It's your pen.
Love it, man. That's great, dude.
Very cool.
Fantastic, brother. Well, we appreciate you, and we'll have to have you on again, and especially when the book comes out, and there'll be opportunities for us to get together like this. This is really good, and
writing that story, man.
Keep writing that story, right? My life, my pen. Folks, thanks for coming and enjoying another episode of Limitless Minds. Remember, you don't have to be sick to get better.